Hi, I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny, and welcome to this edition of Chandler Inside and Out. Today we have a very special edition. We'll be interviewing two outgoing council members. We'll be interviewing Vice Mayor Jack Sellers and Councilmember Rick Human. Thank both of you for coming out today and hopefully sharing some more about you and your quest to be on the council and how you like the council with the audience. So appreciate both of you being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
In Chandler, we have something that's called term limits, and for council and for mayor now too, it's 2 4-year terms. So you guys are entering the last month or so of your term. And so I wanted to interview both of you and just talk a little bit about things. So I guess the first question I have, and I'll start with you, Jack, would be what got you into running for council 8 years ago? What was the defining thing that got you into that?
Well, I went to an Arizona town hall and came back from that pretty fired up about getting more involved in the process. And I was chairman of the Mesa Chamber of Commerce at the time. And, you know, they all really encouraged me and said they would support me and wanted me to run for the state legislature. Long story short, I talked to a number of people about different things I could do, including you, Mayor.
Yes.
And was convinced to run for city council here in Chandler. And very pleased that I did that. It turned out to be very good. But I think the way this all started for me probably is one of the reasons why I've been so involved regionally. Even though my primary love is Chandler, as you know, I've had a lot of regional contacts and very involved on a regional and even a statewide basis.
And before I go to Rick with that same question, a little bit about your background. I know you had a long career. You're retired from General Motors, but a little bit about your background, maybe.
Yeah, I was the facility manager at the GM Desert Proving Ground for quite a few years. And when they decided to move the proving ground to Yuma, Arizona, I decided to stay here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll get back to your background. And I thought it was interesting, too. You were very heavily involved with Mesa at the time, Mesa Chamber and what have you.
Well, and that's really the reason I got involved with the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. The proving ground was in Mesa, and we got involved in a number of zoning issues. And so I got to know the Mesa City Council, I got to know the county supervisors, and the Congress people from our district, and all those folks on a pretty close level during that period.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, Rick, 8 years ago, what was the defining moment that had you running? And for fair disclosure, now that I think about it, that was your second run. So you had run before 4 years, 2 years, 2 years,
2 years prior to that, right?
So talk to us a little bit about the first run, what made you run, and then the second time through.
I started getting involved in city stuff back in the middle to late 90s, and actually you appointed me to the Planning Commission back in 2000 and did that for a while. And my family always taught us about giving back through public service. My mom was heavily involved, my sister's heavily involved. And did my planning and zoning days, and then Mayor Dunn asked me then to be on the Planning Commission, ran the bond election, and really just want to give back to the community. I mean, that's really what it was all about. It was about how can I be a better service. I learned a lot on P&Z. It wasn't like I was just jumping into city council. I'd really understood the city a little bit more in terms of what went into it, making a great city, and really got a chance to look at what you guys had done for years, and the mayors and the council members before, and just decided, you know what, I think I can make a difference. And that's why I decided to run for that second time. First time I ran, I didn't have any idea what I was doing.
You ran in 2006.
2006, right.
And you didn't win.
Nope, didn't win, didn't know what I was doing at the time, and really, figured it out a little bit more and got more involved than even I was involved, and came back and ran in 2008 and won that time. So.
And like you said, you had a P&Z, and I think before P&Z, I had put you on Parks, hadn't I?
No, I was on Parks after P&Z.
After you were, that was
I was
after.
just a lot of neighborhood stuff I was involved with.
Yeah, a lot of
There was a
neighborhood
library
stuff.
issue that we were involved with, and some other stuff.
So background, you've done a lot of city stuff.
Mhm.
Any other stuff of local note that
You know,
did?
I serve on the Desert Cancer Foundation Board of Directors for the last 8 years. I serve on the JCC board. I do a lot of regional stuff through my council. I've really gotten involved in water issues quite a bit.
Yeah.
and some other things too.
You were very active in neighborhood issues. I remember I was a particular zoning case,
Right.
and that's kind of where I noticed you
Right.
were very interested in what was happening in your area.
Yeah, I cut my teeth on what ended up getting the Sunset Library built when I was trying to be put into a school. And at the time, the school district thought that was a great idea. It was a joint venture. And Dr. Shower, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, said, now with all the security measures, we couldn't have had it. We ended up with Sunset Library, which was a great
Right.
deal. And then there was the zoning case at Chandler McClintock that I got heavily involved with, was one of the leaders of a big coalition. And what's cool about that project now, 15, 16 years later, that we have Garmin there, we have DeVita there, we have Creative Leather, we have all these great companies that are now building in there. And that was the vision that the council had originally seen, and somebody tried to change it, and we were able to make it happen the other way.
Good work. Okay, so both of you got elected in 2008. You took office. Jack, we'll start with you. What kind of surprised you the most as you took on the new duties of being a council member in Chandler, Arizona?
Well, before I got on the council, I actually chaired the Transportation Commission here in Chandler for a couple of years. And so I was and through that, I attended a lot of council meetings. I attended budget meetings. I did attended a lot of city meetings before I got on council. So I was pretty familiar with the workings of the council before I got on. But I guess the biggest surprise for me when I got on council was executive sessions. I hadn't done those before. I didn't really know how they worked. And I don't know how many times they told me, Jack, we don't vote in executive session.
Right.
Before
And
I
for the
finally-
audience, our executive sessions are something we have. Those are for the council and the people from staff that are involved with an issue. For the most part, they're legal issues that the city's involved with or personnel issues.
Correct. And, through all the other involvement I had, I was very familiar with open meeting laws and those kind of things, but had not experienced executive session.
Yeah. And there was probably a workload that you didn't probably anticipate, I would think.
That's true. I didn't really have any idea how much it would take to be a city council member when I got on the council. And what I tell people now is it'll take however much time you're willing to give it.
Yeah. Rick, same question for you. What's your thoughts on that?
I think I'll touch on what Jack said a little bit in terms of the time element, and it's what you want to put into it. And I was always involved in a lot of different things, but you can make it as what you want to make it. I mean, you can show up to council meetings or you can be involved. And, I ran on certain platforms of neighborhoods and jobs and really stayed heavily involved in those kinds of things. And I think that was one of the issues. And I think the other one that was different, was that you have to build coalitions. I mean, it's the old joke about counting to four, but you can't count to four in the open meeting law, so you still have to really present your case to the rest of the council, and I guess learn when to, when to show them, when to fold them, I guess. So there's been times over the 8 years of just, projects that maybe you thought were great or not, but I think that that was probably the learning curve in terms of that. But I agree with Jack. It's what you want to put into it, and I've loved every minute of it. So
That's a good observation. Good.
And I think a huge difference between our council and many of the other councils that I've been associated with, that I've watched, is that when we have a contentious issue, when it's settled, it's settled. That we all get behind it. We truly are a consensus building council, and I've really appreciaed that.
Jack and I both ran on that. I was, my joke was whether it's a 4-3 vote or a 7-0, when you leave the room, it's 7-0. And I think the last 8 years, we've had really good council members that, when it was over, it was over. We moved on. If we joke, go get a beer at Serrano's or go get a soda or whatever it might be.
So that year you both got elected, 2008. Who was the third council member that got elected?
Matt Orlando got elected at the
Okay.
same time. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So you guys have worked on a lot of issues, and I'm glad you brought up the job is what you make of it. It's pretty much like anything else in life. I mean, it's what you put into it and what you get out of it. But you guys have gone above and beyond the call of duty and being very involved with city issues, the regional issues. You both have been go-to people for that, and so I thank you on behalf of all the citizens of Chandler. But you guys have been besides having good experience now, you always put the time in, and you have to do that. So I'll start with you on the next one, Rick. So any particular issues, an issue or two that you're especially cognizant of or especially proud of in your 8 years on the council? Because we've done so many things.
We've done a lot of different things. And I think really, I think one of the best things I think we can honestly say is that when Jack and I came on, it was the recession was hitting, the greatest recession since the Great Depression. And we were able to come out of it without laying off one employee, no furlough days, keeping city services up, not being open 4 days a week. I think that was one of the things that I was proud about. But we were able to scrutinize and really look at government in a different way. We looked at everything. I always remember the story Jack tells about his Dow Chemical days, his bosses. Just because we've been doing it that way doesn't mean it's right. And we challenged a lot of things in those first couple of years. And I think that was one of the things I was really proud about, that we were able to, other cities are, folding over all kinds of stuff. We held our AAA bond ratings, which we're really proud about. And then some of the other things I've been really, I started the Chandler Education Coalition about 7 years ago. And, now to see where that's come, our Chandler Science Spectacular, which is now a signature event for the state. We draw 4,000 or 5,000 people. Our Birth to 5 initiative that we're doing, that we're rolling out. Those are fun kinds of things that you see you can make a difference in the city. The regional stuff's been great. The water policy. I mean, I've served 6 years on AMWA, the Arizona Municipal Water Use Authority, and I've become kind of, I guess, our go-to expert on that. And as I joke, our water guys know on their finger, it's more than I know. But it's been really kind of cool to be able to work on some of those issues that are important. The water allocation policy that the council passed, not I, the council passed about 9 months ago now, is a groundbreaking item. I was at a meeting this week, and we were talking about that, and it's really, something other cities are taking a look at. So those are a couple of cool things we've done, and we've done a lot of other stuff too. So
yeah, interesting. Jack, so any particular issues or two that you feel especially interested in?
We've done so many really interesting, great things in the time that Rick and I have been on the council, so it's hard to single out things. But I'll start by saying that because I got involved with the redesign of downtown while I was on the Transportation Commission, and then seeing that actually come to fruition after I got on the council, and over a period of time seeing the very positive impact it's had on our downtown, even though at the time we were doing that planning, it was a fairly contentious issue. So I look at that and feel really good about that and the involvement I had with that. But, the other thing that I really am probably the most proud of is the work that I've done in economic development and recognizing that 95% of the world's consumers are outside of the United States. And I'm extremely proud that many people consider me to be Chandler's international ambassador.
Sure.
And so the work I've done there, I'll continue to do even after I'm off the council, and hopefully still be able to do some good things for Chandler through those venues.
Yeah, we've done a lot of economic development related things in you guys' time. The water policy, that's a good one. But you're right, you guys both came on we were right kind of in the heart of that recession. We had been in it, and we would take a couple more years to pull out of it. Any thoughts on that, Jack? Because that's a pretty tough time. I know I was down at the state legislature dealing with just horrendous budget issues at the time.
Well, one of the interesting other footnote, I guess, to when Rick and I came on the council, probably the biggest eyesore in the city was Elevation Chandler. And, just yesterday we did a groundbreaking for another piece of the replacement for that. And, some of that was because of the recession. The planning for that that development hit at a very bad time, but part of it was the way they had structured the ownership. And so it got tied up in court and went through a number of legal battles. It became a real challenge for the council to deal with that through the years. And we're very proud now to see what's happening there.
And I'll be right back to you, Rick. I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny. You're watching Chandler Inside and Out today. Today, our guests in studio are Councilmember Rick Human and Vice Mayor Jack Sellers, talking about their 8 years on the council, as they both will be leaving the city council in January. So thank both of you again for being in studio. So you had talked a little bit about the recession, and yeah, the buildings, we had a couple of visible eyesores. And as with anything else, as the economy got better, those eyesores eventually disappeared. But any other thoughts on when you came in, any tough issues that come to mind?
You know, the downtown was a big issue. I mean, when we were widening the street and, and not widening the street, actually tightening up the street and doing some of the things, one of the things that I'm real proud of, Jack and I both, we think long term. We're not so thinking just tomorrow kind of a situation. So, economic development, some of the things with, our tech shop that's been built downtown is a great benefit. Working our neighborhood issues has been a great thing. When Jennifer Morrison and her whole team were here, and revitalizing some of our older neighborhoods and working with that, I think was really important through the recession that we were able to do that. I think it's important, like I said before, without laying off anybody. We've got, a great staff. We still have the lowest ratio of employees to citizens. We have all these great statistics, but it's a culture. That's one of the things that I really learned about being on council. You learn about some of it before, but there's a culture here of helping people and, answering emails and phone calls and people being able to pick up the phone, and they're shocked that you guys in Chandler call people back. And something Jack touched on a little earlier is that, whatever the vote was, we moved on. And I think that was something, whether anything on the, there are different people's mindsets on the council, but I think that's really important. I talk to people around the valley and I hear about other councils and boy, it's, so.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So Jack, as you prepare to leave, what do you think you'll miss most about the council or the council work or your days on the council?
Oh gosh, I'm just going to seriously miss serving on the council, because what a great experience this has been. I've loved being able to have such direct interaction with people, and it's so rewarding to be able to actually see things that you and the residents in the city establish as priorities, see them actually happen while you're part of the process. So, I'm not sure what else you can do where you get that kind of satisfaction out of what you're doing.
Yeah. Good. Rick, what about you? What do you think you'll miss most about the job?
I think a little bit of the camaraderie and the day-to-day activities. I mean, I'm still going to be involved, and I think, I joke about the nonprofits kind of circling the wagon right now, trying to line me up, and which, again, giving back to service. But I think just being able, like Jack said a little bit, of being able to see things to fruition. And I'm not going anywhere, Mayor. I'm going to be in town here and, watching what's going on, and wherever I can help, if you need me to do things, whatever, because the city's in my blood kind of thing. I've been here a long time. We moved here in 1982, and we've seen it grow from 25, 30,000 people up to what we are today. And so I'll miss some of that, interaction a little bit, but like I said, I'll still be going to a lot of different things and being involved, so.
And you will be, they are lining up to nonprofits to get you to serve. I hear somebody just recently told me you'll be becoming a new member of the Chandler Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. So congratulations on that. So with you, Rick, again, any things on the council that you won't miss? Any particular thing or what have you?
I really can't pinpoint anything. We always joke, and you and I have a good sense of humor and a little bantering and stuff, and we always laugh about that. But I really don't think so, because we haven't had those years with people, other council members that you've had over the years sometimes, and we get along. I mean, we really do, and I think that's important, that we don't have to agree on every issue, and I don't think I've had an issue yet that I was so passionate about and I was so mad that something didn't happen. I mean, we talk through things and we compromise on a lot of different issues, and we've been able to get a lot of stuff done. And I think that's important. So, if we had a fractured council and everybody's yelling at everybody every time, but, we pick on each other more about baseball or ASU or U of A, and, how many councils can sit up there and have that kind of fun and not realizing that we're, as we joke, we were talking about before the show started, we get called council members, but I'm Rick and he's Jack, and we're down to earth people, and I think that's fun.
And Jack, you're going to stay very busy leaving. I know you're a member of the Arizona Department of Transportation Board, which is a real honor and a real important position. So your issues of transportation, economic development, you'll continue to be very involved. As you guys leave, and we have 2 new members taking your place, Jack, I'll start with you here. Any advice you'd give for these 2 brand new council members?
You know, I think the most important thing for anybody coming on the council to grasp, and I'm not sure how easy it is to grasp this, but they need to realize that being on council is not about them. It's about the people they represent. And if you can just keep that perspective, I think you can learn how to be a good council member.
Rick, how about you? Any advice for the 2 new people taking your places?
You know, whenever, you know, I learned this from a gentleman named Tom Padilla when I was on Planning Commission, that, you know, I was asking lots of questions, and Tom pulled me aside and said, you know what, Rick, he says, you need to ask those questions ahead of time, you know, get a little bit more with staff. And I've learned that staff, you know, what's important to people, I've said this, staff will work for you or with you. You have to make that decision, that because I've been able on our Chandler Science Spectacular, the people like Odette or Micah or Dave, you know, and Melanie and Heather and all the people in city managers group and Parks and Rec, those are the guys that make the difference, you know, and I think that that's so important that people realize it's not about me, it's we as a council, because me as one person can't get anything done. And I think it's so important for people to understand that, you know, it's working with the staff, like Jack says, what our citizens want, and thinking long term. And I think we have an amazing staff. I think that's one of the most important things people have to realize. And it's also that institutional knowledge that for the new council member, if you don't know something, it doesn't hurt to pick up the phone. And I've met with both of them and say, hey, you know, how can I help? I'm not going anywhere. You know, pick up the phone, and, you know, because you'll laugh and you'll see something, oh, I want to get that done. Well, you know, that 3 years ago or 4 years ago or 6 years ago. You've seen it over your time and stuff. So I think that's an important kind of tidbit for those guys.
Good advice. Any advice for the council as a whole as we move to the future? Any thoughts that you would like to see or not see from
You
the
know,
council?
I guess the strongest piece of advice I could give to the council is that it's a much more difficult job to keep a really good city moving forward than it is to go fix a city that's broken. And so don't ever rest on your laurels. Keep looking out into the future and planning for the future, and ensuring that people 20 years from now are going to be as proud of what we did as the people we're proud of from 20 years ago.
How about you, Rick? On
That's
advice
really,
for the council.
it's a really great point for the council to think about. It's be visionary, you know,
Right.
Don't be reactionary. You know, we all joke about the legislature being reactionary. If you think long term, you know, I reiterate again, how do you come out of a recession with AAA bond ratings, with able to give your employees raises? Because you're thinking long term. It's not knee-jerk kinds of stuff. I mean, Mayor, you did an amazing job with our infrastructure reserve to make sure we're maintaining our streets.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people would say, well, let's go spend money on something else. No, you've got to protect what you have. And I think that's really important for any council. Like Jack said, you know, the Price Road Corridor wasn't designed by us. It was designed 30 and 40 years ago. And those things that were done long term, the water policy we're doing, the buying, you know, more water for the future. It might be expensive today, but I joke with people, 10 years from now, people are going to go, how did Chandler buy that water that cheap?
Yeah.
So
You guys have both been very involved with constituents, our citizens at Chandler. We get a lot of requests from our constituents, email, personal, and you've both been really good with dealing with your constituents. Any thoughts on your constituents you've worked with these last 8 years, Jack?
You know, I think that the most important thing is to just really make them feel comfortable contacting you, and make them understand that you really do care. You might not always be able to give them the answer they're looking for, but that you care and that you'll listen and do whatever you can that makes sense.
Yeah. How about you? You're all your constituents.
yeah, you know, I've always been, you know, I always return my own emails, phone calls, things like that. Our citizens want to have an answer. And like Jack says, maybe it's not the answer they want, but they feel more comfortable that, number one, a council member called them back. And I think, again, it goes back to our staff. Our staff does an amazing job of getting on, you know, hey, can you check on this? And everybody in the city is great about that. And I think that's, you know, I'll miss some of that, you know, but I know people will still be calling us. I use the old Lowell Huggins thing, you know, the town barber, but, you know, people would ask Lowell. And I've been proud to be able, somebody called me about an issue, and if I could help, we would try and help them. And some things
Yeah.
are simple. So
We've had a lot of staff changes through the years. The council hires the manager, the magistrate, the lawyer, and the city clerk, and we're directly responsible for that. Any thoughts on some of the folks we've had work directly for us the last 8 years? Jack, start with you.
Well, as Rick said earlier, I think one of the things that makes us look as good as we look is we have an amazing staff. And I've really enjoyed the working relationship we've had, even as we've changed key staff members. We've always had a good dialogue, a good working relationship, and I can't think of a time where I really felt like we missed a beat when we've had to change. And we've gone through some periods where, in fact, we are short one assistant city manager right now, and the staff is just so professional and so proficient that you would hardly know it, even though we know that we have people that are probably working more than they should be to cover for that, but just really a good staff.
Any final observations, Rick, for the audience today?
yeah, no, I think just to touch a little bit on Jack with the changes, it's the culture I talked about earlier. We have a culture in Chandler that's really has gone on for 30 and 40 years, and I think that's part of the new people we've brought on have grasped that, which is really important. So that's what I would say in terms of those changes. It's about culture.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming on today. We'll continue to cross paths. You're not going anywhere, and I'm sure if we're doing something that you're not quite sure about, you won't be hesitant to pick up the phone and
Nope.
You may hear from us more than you want to.
Well, I hope so. I hope to plug you guys in and get you involved with the city in some way formally. So, but again, I want to thank, on behalf of all the citizens of Chandler, I want to thank you, Vice Mayor Sellers and Councilmember Human, for your 8 years of really exemplary work in Chandler.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for being part of this with us.
Hi, I'm Mayor Jay Tipshreny, and you have been watching Chandler Inside and Out today. Hope you enjoyed the program, and until we see you again, take care and be safe.